IVM.
Hello and welcome to this episode of the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. This is DJ, your host for the week, and it's a full house here. I've got Varun and Ashwin both. I'll start with you, Varun. Varun, how are you doing? How are you coping with the mid-season IPL lull?
The lull was there a little bit, but hopefully now with the two doubleheaders on the weekend, things will pick up. It's been good, man. It's starting to sink in that IPL is probably going to end sooner than I would have liked. So not feeling that great.
Ashwin, have you got any mid-season kind of fatigue for IPL? We're about 11 games in for each team. The pitches seem to be getting slower. The scores seem to be getting lower. There are less kind of sixes and fours being hit. But are you feeling it a little bit?
Yeah, I don't mind the slower pitches and the lower scoring games. I think they make it probably a little bit more fun. I'm with Varun. When you start processing that 41, 42, 43 matches are done, that means there's only 10 left plus the playoffs. And so that means what we looked forward to for so long is pretty much coming to an end. But I think you said it right, which was when the IPL ends, that means India playing Test cricket is close behind. So pretty excited there. What I think we're going to talk about that's interesting is the matches this week have all been pretty one-sided except for one, which was where, Punjab played Hyderabad. But everywhere else it's been kind of boring that way, which has been disappointing.
Yeah, so we left you guys at the midweek episode with the game that took place on Wednesday, where Mohammad Siraj had run through the KKR lineup, right? And bowled them out not bowled them out, but they struggled to 84 in 20 overs. The next game after that was the Sunrisers Hyderabad versus the Rajasthan Royals. I'm going to come to you on this, Ashwin, first. And Kane was injured, Kane Williamson, and Holder came in, picked up a run out and 3 wickets. I know you had him in your fantasy team with your strategy of picking the guy that nobody else has or the guy that's coming new. But it's worked pretty well for you. And how big a change was that for the Sunrisers Hyderabad?
Yeah, I not only had him in my team, I had him captain. So that helped me kind of find some form again this fantasy season. Yeah, I think they've always struggled with this, right? We talk about this a lot. But when 3 of your overseas slots go to Warner, Bairstow, and Williamson, it just doesn't give you room to have that firepower. And Rashid Khan is a shoo-in for that fourth spot. So it doesn't give you that firepower to have somebody at 5, 6, 7. I think Holder obviously didn't do much with it, didn't have to do anything with the bat, but it just gives you that option of somebody who has experience at the international level with the ball, who can obviously, coach and guide some of the younger guys. I'm sure Natarajan, Shankar, Sandeep, they were all benefiting from Holder's presence with the quick ball as well. So I think a good change. Obviously, unbelievable that Kane Williamson doesn't make the starting 11, but a good change that gives them some stability.
Yeah, and I think it was due to injury more than form. So a fair enough change there. But Varun, I'm going to come to you on the next one. We talked about Ashwin's fantasy captain, and I think your fantasy captain that day was Ben Stokes, right? What's up with him? He looks awfully out of form. And I know as I say this, Rajasthan Royals are playing, and you've captained him again, so he's probably going to get 100 by the time this releases. But, I mean, he scored 30 of 32, hit 2 fours, was bowled by Rashid Khan. What's ailing Stokes? I mean, the world's premier all-rounder was dropped as well, but didn't really go on to make the opposition pay.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, I think he's not batting well. His strike rate in this game was under 100, and ESPN Cricinfo actually has something called Smart Stats, which usually is able to pull out a number that says, Ben Stokes was dropped on, X number of runs, and that drop cost the bowling team 20 runs, 30 runs, 40 runs. It was interesting that the Smart Stats said that because of the drop, the bowling team actually benefited by 8 runs, right? So, and that shows you basically the kind of season Ben Stokes is having. Now, I don't think quarantine and is still a factor for him. He's got enough match practice. He's been out of cricket for a long time, but I don't know what's happening, man. Neither is he bowling well, nor is he batting well. He's been asked to bat up the order, but he's not providing that start in the power play. So I really don't know what's going on. You called him the premium all-rounder. I think he is. So it's just a little bit of time before he gets back, but he's not having a good season at all.
Yeah, I find it fascinating that a team that has the World Cup winners in Joss Butler, Jofra Archer, Ben Stokes, and one of the world's premier batsmen, Steve Smith, just struggles to get wins on the board. They're sitting at the bottom of the table as they play this the second game of the Sunday doubleheader. But Ashwin, I'm going to come to you, and you're going to like this chat. It's about Pandey. So Jofra picked up Warner again and Bairstow, and man, he looked like he was in some serious form. Really quick, bowled 2 overs up front. There was probably an argument for giving him a third because there wasn't those many runs to defend, right? There was only 156 on the board for the Rajasthan Royals. Smith opted not to give the third over to Jofra and save him for later. But Manish Pandey just came in and took off. I mean, it was a brilliant counter-attacking innings. It's probably the best I've seen him bat for a few years. Scored 83 of 47. Had a nice partnership with Vijay Shankar, who we'll talk about a little bit later. But Ashwin, how happy were you to see Manish Pandey score those runs? And I'm sure you had him in your fantasy team as well.
I absolutely did. And it's unbelievable. He's just a great cricketer. For anybody who's been listening to this show for 2.5 years, they know I'm a big fan of his. I think, unfortunately, timing didn't work in his favor in terms of selection for India and stuff. So he hasn't gotten as many opportunities as I think he should. But let me rattle off a couple of things, right? He's played 21 innings in ODIs. He's averages over 35. He's got a century in there, 2 half centuries, strikes at 92. In T20s for India, he averages 47, striking at nearly 130. His first class average is 51. So the guy has immense talent and has the numbers to back it. I'm just really glad that, unfortunately, with Warner and Bairstow being as good as they are at the top, he doesn't always get his due. He doesn't always get the opportunity and doesn't always get his due. So he hasn't had a phenomenal IPL by any means, but I think this was his third 50. He got 2 other 50s. This time he made 83. Just to see him find that new gear and bat at, close to 200 a strike rate to take his team over the line and stay not out at the end, that was fantastic for me.
Yeah, great innings from Manish. And Varun, I want to ask you about Vijay Shankar, right? He got 51 of 50. What did you think of his innings? He looked a little bit slow, like he was feeling his way back into the game. What do you think of his innings of 50? And what about that celebration? Do you think there was called for? Was it a bit too exuberant for a pretty slow 50 actually?
So DJ, I actually missed the celebration. What happened? Did he celebrate very big, over the top?
Ashwin, I know you had some thoughts on this one.
Yeah, so it wasn't exactly over the top, but I mean, he hit a single to get to 50 off 50 balls, I think it was, after one of the most painful innings. Yes, granted, he was there supporting Manish. Manish was batting well, but he took his helmet off, kind of raised his arms, raised his bat at the dugout, and I'm thinking you made one of the worst T20 50s, most painful ones I've seen. It just felt a little bit like you don't have to celebrate so big. But that was just me. I also probably am biased because I'm not a huge fan.
Yeah, so I think to me what that just shows, that celebration as you described it, is just the incredible amount of frustration around Vijay Shankar, and he's probably frustrated at himself. 15 months ago, he was touted to be the next big thing for the middle order and the 3D player, and things didn't work according to his plan, right? So I think for me, DJ, when you ask me that question, I think it's very clear that Vijay Shankar is not a T20 batsman. This is the perfect kind of role for him where the openers have got out cheaply. Manish Pandey is batting well, and the only instruction to him is pretty much go at a runner ball. And I think he delivered, right? Because everyone has their strengths, and this is clearly his strength. So he did well in the situation. He went at the runner ball. I think Vijay Shankar, when he bats like the way he did, actually hit some very good cricketing shots, especially on the offside. But I think to expect Vijay Shankar to come out and win you a T20 game in a situation where suppose you need 10, 12, 14 runs per over, that's not going to happen. So I think this game was kind of tailor-made for him. But otherwise, I mean, Vijay Shankar even batting at 4 for Sunrisers doesn't speak very highly of the team.
And to think 1 year ago he was batting at 4 for India, and he was the next big thing, right? He also was the one that dropped Ben Stokes, actually. So he had an interesting game, let's say, with the smart stats stuff that you sent out there. The next game, guys, let's move on to CSK versus Mumbai Indians, right? This was a do or die game for the Chennai Super Kings. They needed to win 4 straight to qualify for the playoffs. I think they had a mathematical chance even if they lost this, but for them to have their fate in their own hands, they needed to win 4 straight here. And there was all that chat, Ashwin. We spoke about the youngsters and no spark and Dhoni's controversial comment. And so thanks to Amit as well, who wrote in with the video and said that Ashwin was right. And Dhoni had actually used a maybe that the youngsters lacked a spark. But the youngsters got a shot in this game. But it almost kind of proved Dhoni right in a sense, didn't it, Ashwin? I mean, both Gaikwad and Jagdishan came in. Both of them got ducks. The CSK were reeling at 43 for 7. I mean, all the big guys were gone, and it was left to Sam Curran and the bowling all-rounders to salvage some pride. So, Ashwin, I'm going to come to you on this. What happened in this game?
Yeah, first off, I do want to make sure for the record, I think somewhere in that opening monologue you said Ashwin was right. So I would like to cut that out and keep that clip saved so I can send it to you whenever I'd like. But anyway, unrelated to that, unbelievable, right? You come out with a must-win match and you're 3 for 4. So, of course, credit where it's due. The Mumbai Indians bowling was phenomenal. Trent Bolt had an outstanding day, 4 for 18. But just not at all at the level they need to be. So happy, we're going to talk about it later, that for Ruturaj Gaikwad, he got a duck. He got one more chance and made a 50. But, man, just nobody stepped up. Really, like you said, Karan made 50. It was just one of those days. And, basically my main takeaway when Dhoni came out for the press conference was, I felt bad for him. And I felt that this is what Kohli's had to deal with for years, where you basically are out of explanations, you're out of ideas, you don't know what to say to the press anymore. You're just like, we're just continuing to have a bad run. And it's not something Chennai and Chennai fans have had to deal with. And I'm sure they'll correct it for future years. But just disappointing that in a must-win game, I guess it was technically not must-win. If KKR loses their next 4 or something, then Chennai can still make it. But it just ridiculous to be 3 for 4.
Yeah, it was a combination of bad batting. It was Sharjah, remember, so it wasn't a terrible pitch and a big ground, but it was a combination of bad batting and brilliant bowling. Varun, Bumrah and Bolt, man. And I know, Ashwin, you said you were right about something, but you've also called Bolt hit and miss in a few episodes ago. But Bolt was brilliant. Took four wickets and supported by Bumrah. So, Varun, are they the best new ball pair alongside perhaps Andre Nokia and Kagiso Rabada in this IPL?
Yeah, I do think so, man. I think the kind of experience they have, you have to remember that Nokia, if that's how you pronounce it, hasn't had.
How do you pronounce it, Ashwin? Do we know is it Nokia?
I don't think you say the R, but I don't know why the T becomes a K. Like, why is everybody putting a K sound instead of a T? I have no idea.
We just call it Nokia, like the phone, right?
Yeah, Nokia. Nokia is the easiest.
That's what Mark Nicholas says. So it feels like if we trust him as an authority on South African names, we can go with it.
Right. So Nokia, I mean, he's bowled phenomenally, but I think these two are the best opening spell that the IPL has seen in a long, long time. You have to remember, though, Bolt is coming in for Malinga. So I don't necessarily know if, Bolt and Bumrah is better than Bumrah and Malinga. But for this IPL, they've been absolutely fantastic. And DJ, I think this was the first game that it really looked like number 1 in the league was playing number 8, right? Top of the table versus bottom of the table at that point. It really showed for Mumbai Indians to come out and win by 10 wickets. I mean, even the best of teams versus worst of teams, you'd still expect them to pick up 1, 2, 3 wickets. So completely dominating performance by Mumbai Indians.
And Varun, is Sam Curran your new favorite all-rounder from the CSK? I know you had a Shane Watson crush for many years, but is Sam Curran the replacement there with his little 50 there? And he took 3 wickets today as well.
Sam Curran, I think, definitely is the future for CSK. I did have a huge crush on Watson. I still do, but not enough to trump him in my fantasy. But I did trump Sam Curran. But I think Sam Curran, what I saw of him when they played India in the Test series, what I'm seeing of him now in CSK, I feel like he's a guy who applies himself. And if you look at Dhoni, I think Dhoni loves those sort of players that can apply themselves, can adapt to match situations. And I was thinking about it just today on my own, that somebody like Sam Curran joining CSK, it's not important for him to be able to say, I'm part of a winning team. But it's more important for him to be able to say that in Dhoni's last few years, I was part of his setup and he believed in me. And to me, the learning that Sam Curran is going to get from Dhoni's faith in him, I think what's going to make him a really, really good player for not just CSK, but for England as well.
Awesome. And Ashwin, Kishan, along with De Kock, just knocked those runs off super easy. They got only 114 for 9. They crawled to 114 for 9. And Mumbai beat the Chennai Super Kings by 10 wickets with 8 overs to go. And Kishan playing instead of Rohit Sharma, who was injured with I think a hamstring injury, got 68 of 37. De Kock continued his great form, got 40 odd. But Kishan, where's that guy been all these years? I mean, he's played kind of like 30s and 40s, but now he's getting those. He got a 99. He's now got this 68. He's batting quite nicely today as well. So, Ashwin, is he really coming on as an important player for the Mumbai Indians now?
Yeah, I mean, look, you got to think about what role they want him to play, right? So I was glad this lefty-righty nonsense kind of didn't trump the decision to send him up the order when Rohit was out, right? He's an opener. He's a great batsman at the top. So they sent 2 lefties with Kishan and De Kock, and it worked obviously well for them. I think he's done okay, right? Like you said, he got 99. He's got a couple of 20s and 30s. He had a couple of single-digit scores this IPL, but he's been playing all through. I think a lot of it depends on, the rest of his team is doing super well. So they didn't need him as much. The Mumbai team has always had somebody step up, and then B, like I said, position and what role they use him for. So I'm mostly interested to see when Rohit comes back in, which will be probably for the last couple games of the group stages and then into the playoffs. What do they drop Kishan back down? Do they then play Yadav at 3 and Kishan down at 4, 5, 6, wherever they've been playing him? Or do they let him continue opening? That'll be the big decision. But great knock from the young guy.
Yeah, and remember, he didn't even start the series, right? He didn't start the IPL season, despite doing well last year, despite being an explosive batsman who over time has matured, I think, compared to at least what we saw in that Mumbai Indians documentary on Netflix. And they still decided to start with Saurabh Tiwari. So he had a point to prove in his first game with that 99. And I think he's done really well.
Yeah, and Saurabh Tiwari played this game as well because Rohit was out. Ashwin, I'm going to ask you, because this is a very interesting question, because there's all this chatter about Rohit as captain for India. He's a great captain for Mumbai Indians. It should translate into him being captain for India in the limited overs leg. Today, we are seeing Pollard captain the Mumbai Indians. He also captained them to that 10-wicket win. We saw his aggressive fields. We saw him bowling Bolt and Bumrah up front. Ashwin, I'm going to ask you a tough question, and it may be a little bit controversial, but is Rohit a great captain, or is he just captaining a great team?
That is definitely a controversial question. I think there's no doubt he's captaining a great team. I do also think he is a great captain, right? Because let's not take away from his prowess as a captain just because his players are good, right? You could say that for any of the great captains over the years. You need good weapons in your arsenal, but a good captain knows how to use them well. And so you have to give credit to Rohit for his field placements, for his bowl, the ability to use the bowlers. Now, he also does trust Mahela a lot. We learned that from the Netflix documentary. That also takes a great captain to rely on a coach who knows well. He also listens to Bumrah, for example, a lot. You can see it when Bumrah wants to choose where to set his field. That also makes a great captain. So I'm a fan of Rohit as a captain. I don't think you discredit a captain because he's got a good set of players to work with.
Interesting, because I always thought that Ricky Ponting was an ordinary captain with a great team, and maybe he wouldn't have had the same results as he would with that team, right? But Varun, any thoughts on the Rohit v. Pollard captaincy stuff? Because Pollard's an incredible captain. He led the Trinbago Knightriders to the CPL title recently, right? And he's won a number of T20 titles, and we can see the leadership that he showed in that Mumbai Indians documentary as well. Any thoughts on Pollard as captain and Rohit as captain as well?
No, I think both of them are leading a fantastic team. If you look at the Mumbai Indians team itself, I think just each player is so perfect for the slot that they play. A lot of work has gone into kind of picking them, grooming them. And so, from Ashwin's reaction, I sense he's a little bit 50-50 on the question you asked him about Rohit. I think I would be more 60-40, that I think Rohit is leading a great team. And, the team gets you to the finals. If I'm not mistaken, in the finals, Mumbai Indians have won off the last ball twice out of their 3 IPL titles, I believe. And so that takes a little bit of magic from the people out there in the center as well, like a Malinga's last ball wicket, I believe, if my memory serves me right. But Rohit is a great captain.
Shardul was the batsman.
Yeah, Rohit is a great captain, but he's leading an even greater team.
I was much more decisive than that. You sat on the fence. You're saying 50-50. Come on. I was much more clear on my point of view that don't take away from Rohit, the captain.
You said he's leading a great team and he's a great captain.
No, I said of course he's leading a great team, but I said he's a great captain. The fact, I don't think they're mutually exclusive that, because his team is good, that means he's not a great skipper. I said he is a great skipper. period.
So are you Team Rohit for Indian limited overs captaincy as well?
No, that's
Ashwin?
not the same question. I'm 100% not, but that doesn't mean he's not a good skipper for Mumbai.
I just wanted to put you on the spot a little bit. Let's move on to the next game, guys. It's a painful one for us, right? It's KKR versus Delhi Capitals. Delhi Capitals until then was sat comfortably at the top of the table. We were feeling pretty good about ourselves. Remember, until last year, we hadn't made the playoffs for many years, and then we made the playoffs with only 14 points, and we already had 14 points after 10 games this season. So Delhi Capital fans were feeling pretty good. Varun, I'm going to come to you on this one. Rahane for Shaw. What did you make of that? Have we been a bit too harsh with Shaw? I know we were critical of him on this podcast, and there's been plenty written about him, but dropping him for Rahane, was that the right move?
100% was the right move. I am so disappointed with Shaw. I cannot tell you. I don't think he should be playing. I think he'll probably make his way back in for the Delhi team. For India, there's no way. And even for Delhi, man, like the kind of shots he's played and all is just ridiculous. So I, for one, was very, 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 three veries. That's how excited I was that he was dropped.
Well, Ashwin, what about Rahane coming in for him? Were you happy with that?
I mean, there's no real other option, right? It had to be Rahane for sure. I think you and I talked this a little bit. If Dhawan is able to bat at 150 plus, then Rahane makes sense as a good second opener option. I think the dynamic just changed, right? With Dhawan being in form, and they made sense to try it. Obviously, he got out cheaply, so they'll probably retreat into the option where Shaw gets to go in and swing big while Dhawan consolidates early on. But it's a tough spot. Rahane would make most of these sides. It seemed like Chennai right now would kill for Rahane, but just doesn't necessarily fit into this Delhi side.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk through that game briefly. We bowled really well. Andrew Nokia was back. He picked up 2 wickets. We had the KKR, who, remember, had only crawled to 84 in their last outing with the bat, right? They were 44 for 3, and they were looking ripe for yet another collapse. And then, Ashwin, we were speaking about this a little bit, because I think Varun may have been out for dinner at that point, or out for lunch. And it was the promotion to bring in Sunil Narayan, who made his way back in at the cost of Tom Banton. He came in at 5, and we were both a little bit surprised by that, because we're like, you've got Captain Morgan sitting in the dugout, and why would you send in Sunil Narayan? But oh my God, what a move it turned out to be in hindsight, man. Ashwin, thoughts on the Narayan promotion? And also, let's talk through Tushar getting taken apart by both Rana as well as Narayan in that spell.
Yeah, so it's interesting because I don't think many of us would have done it, right? But I think what the KKR leadership did really well is they noticed that by the time I'm losing track of exactly when it was, but by the time that third wicket fell, I think it was the 8th over, Rabada had already bowled 2, Nokia had already bowled 2. So, and Stoinis had bowled 1. So they knew there were 8 overs essentially of Ashwin and Akshar left. And Narayan is great against spin. He's terrible against the short ball. We know that, but he's good against spin. So I think that's the reason they took it. It messed up Iyer's plans a little because Iyer didn't end up bowling Akshar, which was a poor decision because Akshar is good against lefties as well. But anyway, just all fell apart. Ashwin came in bowling leg spinners, and you saw Ponting mouthing in the dugout, like, what the F is he doing? He's an off spinner. Why is he bowling all these leg spinners and getting taken to the cleaners? So just a poor day in the field tactically. Hopefully, I'm pretty confident Ponting and Iyer had lots of good conversations after and figured out how to not let this happen again.
Yeah, of course, Rana got to 81 of 53. Narayan scored 60 odd. And I mean, 194 was going to be a tough chase, right? 194 is what the KKR got. It was always going to be a tough chase for the Delhi Capitals team. Rahane went for a duck on the first ball of the innings, which didn't help. Shikhar Dhawan. Let's talk about Shikhar Dhawan, man. Like, because Iyer and Pant got a few runs, but without Shikhar Dhawan's runs, Varun, are we masking a larger problem because the rest of the batting lineup isn't firing? And I mean, Iyer was pretty relaxed about this after the game, but is it time to panic a little bit for Delhi Capitals players and fans?
Yeah, it's 100% time to panic. I've been scared of this for a while. I don't think it's Dhawan's fault for like masking this. You got to give him credit. He's played according to the situation. He's played well, but the middle order is just not up to the mark. I don't know what Pant is doing. He's kind of muddled up in the head. He has no idea whether to go for the ball or defend it. I think he's slowly becoming a master of just taking singles. And The Indian team, the Delhi team, we've got plenty of people to do that. So I think Delhi is going to be in for some big trouble if they don't spend some time to figure out what's going wrong. I think Delhi is prime and set up perfectly for a situation in the in the playoff game where they're going to be a 15-3, and we've discussed that a lot. And I think it's not going to go well because this is a team which doesn't know how to win a tournament yet. It's a team that has a lot of ghosts about their past. And yeah, man, I think Hetmeyer and Stoinis are good players on their day, but otherwise, I don't know. I'm being a little negative, but I don't think this team is going to make it.
Yeah, Ashwin, are we being a little bit pessimistic? I mean, I'd rather have this game now than in the playoffs, right? I mean, it's a long tournament and all teams go through a little bit of a lull. And the Delhi Capitals have gone through a little bit of a dip, losing 2 games on the bounce. But is it a good wake-up call? Or, like Varun, are you more negative about the chances of the team after those 2 losses?
Yeah, I agree. It's a good wake-up call. Better now than later, etc. But man, after 12 years of supporting this team and seeing them crumble in situations we should have been better, I don't think you can blame us as Delhi fans, as lifelong Delhi fans, for being negative. So let's just hope under the leadership we have now, they take the negativity and channel it. That's all I can say. I think we're being a little negative, but I think it's justified.
And I think it may have to do with Varun's friends being KKR supporters, right? And we're talking to a KKR fan later in the show, so I'm sure we'll get plenty of chat from them, but we can also give some back with the Rabada versus Russell Yorker, because, I mean, Russell was just too chicken to show up, right? This game. Anyway, let's move on to the chase. I mean, the KKR bowled well, right? Like Cummins took 3 wickets. There was some criticism that he wasn't taking wickets. He was keeping the runs down. And Chakraborty, man, the guy who they saw that spark in some time ago, and he went for what 8 crores, Varun? Was it 8 crores that he went for?
I think some ridiculous amount.
Completely uncapped player that nobody knew about. Man, he proved his worth, right? Taking 5 for 20. What a spell that was, dude.
Yeah, I mean, he bowled really well. I think he just cleaned up that entire middle order, right from Delhi's Shreyas Iyer all the way to Akshar Patel. He just cleaned the team up.
Yeah, so a bit of a depressing end for Delhi fans. But let's move on to the second game of the Saturday doubleheader, which was the Kings 11 Punjab versus the Sunrisers Hyderabad. And the Kings 11 are continuing their resurgence, man. I don't know what's got into them, because like the last 2 seasons, they won all the games at the front end of the tournament and lost everything at the back end. But they seem to have come like full circle. Ashwin, is 5th probably a fair reflection of where they stand after losing games they should have won and winning games they should have lost?
Yeah, I think so. I think you articulated it well. There are definitely at least 3 games they should have won that they came up short. And then this is the second, maybe third game that they should have lost and found a way to win. So happy for them. They're coming good at the right time. Their bowlers actually stepped up this game and defended a total that didn't deserve to be defended. So glad for Rahul and Punjab that they're still maintaining the fight.
Yeah, man. And there was no Mayank. Rahul didn't get too many runs, but how magnificent were Arshdeep and Jordan at the end. And Varun, did you manage to catch the closing overs of the doubleheader on Saturday, the Kings 11 versus Sunrisers Hyderabad game?
I didn't, man, because we had people over and they left just as the Hyderabad innings was going to start. And I saw Warner, Bairstow, Pandey all contributing double figures. And so I switched the TV off. I woke up the next morning and to my surprise, Kings 11 Punjab has defended 126. So kudos to them. I think 4 wins on the trot. Kumble looked extremely happy. Rahul looked relieved. I think this team is much better than what they've done than what the table suggests. And I mean, secretly, I really hope that somehow they make it into the top 4 and KKR doesn't.
I think, Varun, the moral of the story is don't turn the TV off when Kings 11 Punjab is playing. I think you've done this like 3 or 4 times. And there's been some crazy stuff that's gone on in the background. But this was the lowest score successfully defended. And Ashwin, we talked about this a little bit on Discord, but what happened to the Sunrisers chase? Pandey and Shankar, the heroes of the last game, just kind of completely melted down, right? What happened to them? 7, they lost 7 for 14.
Yeah, I think it's worth saying again, like Dubai, I think, has 3 pitches that are constantly being used. So we all predicted this before the tournament. Pitches would start to get slower. The ball was not coming on the bat. So 126, while didn't look like a good score, obviously in hindsight turned out to be enough. And then, yeah, I mean, look, unfortunately, Pandey Pandey had a bad day out. I thought they made a couple odd decisions by sending Samad up the order at number 4 after Shankar had done well at number 4. And then it honestly, when your team is so over-reliant on your top 3 in Warner, Bairstow and Pandey, it exposed the middle order being Abdul Samad, Vijay Shankar, Jason Holder and Priyam Garg at those 4, 5, 6, 7 slots that are less experienced. So yeah, I think it just was a bad outing. Warner looked very, very, very upset. And I think they're going to be now fighting for a shot that it looks like it's getting increasingly out of reach.
Yeah, and just a quick shout out to both Mandeep Singh and Nitish Rana, who had unfortunately had people passing away in their families. Mandeep lost his dad on Friday, and Nitish Rana lost his father-in-law on during the week as well. So incredible for those guys to continue to play cricket and do their thing. Obviously, they can't leave the bubble and go back and stuff. So it must be really tough. So obviously, our thoughts are with them. Incredible performance by them. But that brings us to the RCB versus Csk game, right? For Delhi fans, this was an interesting game because we actually did not want RCB to win because it would push us off the top 2. Let's talk through this game very quickly, guys, because we've got our fan section coming up. But the Royal Challengers Bangalore got to 145 for 6. Kohli won the toss and batted first, believing that this was the track on which the Kings 11 had actually defended 126 the night before, the lowest score as we just spoke through. And they played a very odd innings. Kohli got 50 of 43. AB de Villiers got 39 of 36. Varun, did they just decide that we can't get more than 160 on this track, so we're going to not overachieve or not going to go for like 160, 180, and ended up with what was eventually a subpar score, right?
Yeah, I think so. I think what happens is when Kohli and de Villiers are batting, they just take it upon themselves to bat till the end. And so what that means is in the middle, you're going to get a lot of overs with singles and doubles. And to be honest, the pitch was slower. I think, as the innings progressed, we saw a lot of guys get caught on the boundary. So it was clearly not a good, easy pitch to bat on. I think they took it a little bit lightly, especially knowing the CSK batting lineup has failed more often than not this tournament. So I think their goal was just, how do we get to 160? And in that process, they kind of fell short because when it came down to Moeen Ali and Chris Morris at the end, both who can really, kind of smoke the ball out of the ground, both of them got caught on the boundary for very cheaply. So I think somewhere they took this a little bit lightly. And again, it's probably a good time for it to be a wake-up call for Bangalore.
Ashwin, your thoughts on Gaikwad getting 50? He looked like a decent player, not outstanding, but I mean, not like what he was showing us to be in the earlier games, right? Getting out for ducks and not making too many runs.
Yeah, just really happy for him, right? It's always so pleasant and heartwarming when a young Indian guy does well, especially coming off the back of a duck. So, obviously it will take time for him to prove himself at this level, but just honestly, just very happy for him to have stepped up and gotten a good 50. Not, again, I'm a big believer in this, but it's not just a 50, but staying not out as he got his team over the line was a big, big thing for us. So I think it'll do a lot for his confidence in the future.
And who the other guy who was staying not out while he got the team over the line was MS Dhoni, number 7. He got 19 of 21. They won by 8 wickets and mathematically stayed alive, apparently, in this playoff race. And they preserved their record of not losing 2 games to the RCB in any season. So that is the wrap on the games up to the Sunday first game. We will be back straight after this break with our listener from the Kolkata Knightriders. So stay tuned, guys.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another awesome, amazing, superb week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you're not following us on social media, please do. We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. What a week we had this week. We had so much crossover, so many great guests. I don't even know where to start. Okay, yeah, I do know where to start. Let's start with Uncle Please Sit. Uncle Please Sit, Joel and Tushar had Hamsini Hariharan. Hamsini hosts a show called States of Anarchy with their network. She is a China expert, and they discuss the India-China relationship. Really fascinating conversation. Cyrus had 2 conversations this week instead of our normal Thursday Cock and Bull. Great conversations, both of them. We'll be back with our regular Cock and Bull next week. But this week, you could definitely check out the conversation he had with Varun Grover. Really fascinating stuff. And Nikhil Taneja, who was the founder of Yuva and the creative director for the India Film Project Festival, which is going on this weekend. He was on the show as well. Cyrus was also on Advertising is Dead this weekend with Varun Dugirala. Cyrus and Varun discussed Cyrus's intent on randomness. Ranveer Brar, guested on Gauri Devi Dayal show. This round's on me. Another amazing conversation over there. Priyanka Khimani, one of the best IP lawyers in this country, was on Storytellers and Storysellers for a fascinating conversation. Definitely do check that out. And finally, I wanted to congratulate Zarina Poonawalla for her 100th episode. She had Ashish Vidyarthi as a guest on that. If you have not been listening to the Empowering series, please do. It's one of the great shows out there. And with that, let's get you back to your show.
Welcome back from that break, and you're still listening to the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. We have with us a Kolkata Knightriders fan, Subhayan Chakraborty. Subhayan, welcome to the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast, man.
Thank you for having me, DJ. You guys are doing a phenomenal job, and I have been a fan for a long time now.
No, it's great to have you on the show. Do you want to give our listeners a little bit of an introduction about yourself, what you do, and how you became a KKR fan?
So right now I'm working as a sports correspondent for WION. It's India's first international news channel under Z Media. So I've been covering cricket for them and a bit of football also. I can't forget football as it is my big love, first love you can say. So yeah, I've been following these two sports very closely, and it's a pleasure to be on your show.
So you're a real sports journalist, unlike us. So it's great for us to have you on. Tell us, Subhayan, how did you become a fan of the KKR team? Is it just because you're from Calcutta, or what is the background to your love for this team?
See, I have been a KKR fan since the time IPL was announced. So it's a no-brainer for me, given that I live in Kolkata. I have studied here and lived my childhood here. So it was a no-brainer for me, especially when it comes to supporting KKR. But since then, it has been a topsy-turvy ride, you can say. Supporting KKR is not an easy job at all.
Yeah, you can say that again. And we put out a call for questions. So you've got lots of questions to answer. But first, we're going to ask you, how did you first find the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast? What attracted you to it, and why do you listen to it? I mean, it's interesting for us to always know that from our listeners.
See, I started following Edges and Sledges from Twitter, mostly. But the quality of work you guys do, the podcast, even when there are no special guests, the quality of audio, the topics you choose, the discussions you guys do is breathtaking. Like, it's one of the best podcasts on cricket I've ever listened to. I've come across many, but the way you have continued to do, I think that enthralls me the most.
That is amazing to hear. Both Varun and Ashwin are smiling as we hear that. So that's really good to hear. But let's talk through your team, right? The Kolkata Knightriders, kind of the glamour team owned by Shah Rukh Khan, the big superstar, Eden Gardens, the great ground. You had all these players. You had like Brendan McCullum playing for you guys in that golden helmet. You had Shoaib Akhtar in the first year, right? But it was a bit of a rocky start to the IPL for the Kolkata Knightriders for the first 4 years or so. I mean, you had the fake IPL player scandal, so to speak. If you remember, there was this site that had started which claimed to be an insider, later found to be fake, but very amusing for people who were not KKR fans. You had John Buchanan, who came up with this idea of having different captains for every aspect of the game. And I believe you're called Kaptan by your friends, right? So who else to ask about captaincy but you? But so we've already got questions about captaincy. So let's get straight into it, because you're the ones that have had a captaincy change this season. What do you make of it? And Karthik O asks, shouldn't they have changed the captain before the tournament itself?
See, honestly, if you take my opinion, I have not been a big fan of captaincy changes midweek, mid into the tournament. But as you said that the captaincy brings a lot of responsibility, and who better to take the load than Owen Morgan, the World Cup winning captain. But see, DK was doing decently. KKR won 2 close games under his captaincy. But many will call me biased, I know. But it is okay. It is okay to have a good mindset, a winning mindset into the team and bring a bit of fresh idea. So it's a mixed feeling when it comes to captaincy change this season for KKR. But yeah, it's that the story never, as I said earlier, it's never easy to be a KKR fan. And the ride, the controversies, the topsy-turviness of being a KKR fan always comes with it, along with it.
So Bharat actually asks, at the rate of Kandal Mitai, asks, what do you think is the real reason for DK stepping down? So controversial question. Any insight into that?
See, we as a journalist are not covering IPL from venues. So we are probably locked inside our rooms, trying to get as much as insights from the camps. But then again, I think it could be a case of DK being a bit knowledgeable about the fact that he has Owen Morgan. Owen Morgan has won England the World Cup, their first ever 50-over World Cup. So why not give him that load and take that pressure off his batting, because he is still eyeing for that spot in the Indian team, and he hasn't done really well in this tournament apart from that one half century he scored. So I think that could be a case. But other than that, if it's a pressure by Baz McCullum and the other coaching staff, then I think it is a bit unfair on to remove a captain mid into the tournament.
Yeah, so as you say, the journalists aren't on the ground, so you're not getting the gossip and the rumors, right? And the rumor mill isn't working overtime. But I mean, all the chatter on Twitter, all the questions we've had, Rohit Singh asks, and KKR took a big decision to completely rebuild their team, and it paid off immediately in 2012 with a win for you guys, right? Do you think they should rebuild completely again? Because, and who would they hang on to? Would it be Gill and Rana? What do you think about that?
See, the composition of the team could be really interesting given the fact I still don't know whether there will be a mega auction before IPL 2021. But if it is there, then I think we might see some big changes in this KKR squad. But most probably Shubman Gill is a definite for the future, and I think Nitish Rana will also continue to play for KKR in this in the future.
So the big question there, and Yashwan Narayan asked the question, with Russell becoming more and more injury prone and Narayan not as, or Narayan, I keep calling him Narayan, I can't help it. Same. Narayan not as effective a bowler as he was in earlier seasons. Should they look to move on from those two big names in the next mega auction whenever that comes around? Would you lose Narayan and Russell in due course?
If you have to take my opinion, I don't think I'll take off Narayan and Andre Russell yet from that KKR squad. How many matches have Sunil Narayan won for KKR in this IPL 2023, if I'm not wrong?
Yesterday being the case in point, sadly, for Delhi Capitals fans.
Yes, and against Kings 11 Punjab and Chennai Super Kings, the two matches where KKR won from a losing cause. I think Narayan was the spearhead of that bowling attack and taking the pressure completely on his shoulder in that second phase of the innings. So you can't really drop the match winners, the potential single-handed match winners, and Andre Russell and Sunil Narayan are both fall both in the category.
So you don't feel that Russell is on the decline? I know Ashwin has got a GIF saved on his phone of Rabada bowling Russell in last year's Super Over. Since then, we've seen the Bumrah bouncer to him. We've seen him come out to the press and talk about his batting order space. Do you think he's going to stick around even if they want to retain him, or is he looking for another home at some stage?
I think he has been always loyal to KKR, and the way they have managed Russell during his tough time when he was banned and everything. And he acknowledges that in public portal. He has spoken about it so many times. And I don't seriously, if you're asking me honestly, I don't see KKR dropping Andre Russell from their squad. Maybe you can say that he's on a decline, but he did really well in CPL. He scored a few half centuries, and don't forget he's a potent bowler also, and he has showed that potency in this tournament as well.
So we've got an interesting question from Sohom, and it's all about the overseas players. We're just talking about Narayan, Morgan, Cummins, Ferguson. Obviously, Russell is out, but why are KKR, Jitendra Kumar asks, why are KKR not using Lockie Ferguson as a new ball bowler? Is it some weird stats thing that says he has to bowl in the 7th over? Is it like a lucky charm for them to come on in the 7th over? Is 7 Baz's lucky number, or what's going on? Why does he come on in the 7th over and not with the new ball?
See, if you look at Lockie, obviously he has done so well in this season, but if you look at his past records, if I'm not wrong, he played only 5 games for KKR last season, and his economy was around 10, over 10 if I'm not wrong. So you always think about that. A batsman coming in or a bowler coming in and performing in just a single match doesn't define the entire tournament for him. Obviously, he can go for runs in next matches also, and which he did actually in the last game. So you have to take everything into the context. Pat Cummins brings something with the bat also, and given the fact that KKR's batting lineup is not so deep, Cummins bring that solidity lower down the order as we have seen in the tournament. But yes, Lockie Ferguson, he's looking in his rhythm this season. And it would be interesting now if and when Andre Russell passes that fitness test.
Yeah, it will be interesting once Russell is fit, whether he actually makes it back into the team. But let's talk about KKR as a whole. I mean, you have won the IPL twice, right? Both times with Gambhir leading the charge for you. What do you make of this season? What is your feeling about this season? You're currently sitting fourth in the table with 12 points, right? So within the cutoff for the playoffs. But does this team give you enough confidence at this stage that it will... It can go through to the playoffs and, in fact, win the whole thing again for the third time?
See, before the tournament, when fans and my friends were asking about my top 4 predictions, I always maintained that KKR have that squad to qualify for the playoffs and potentially win the tournament. I'm not being biased here. I'm completely speaking as a neutral here. Okay, see the batting lineup. Shubman Gill is there. Nitish Rana, decently experienced player in IPL, is there. You have Owen Morgan, Dinesh Karthik and Andre Russell, potentially the biggest T20 players in the last couple of years or more, you can say. But they haven't clicked together in this tournament. You have seen Owen Morgan playing in flashes and patches. Andre Russell has been completely off with the bat. DK hasn't really clicked in this tournament. His batting position is currently not fixed at all. Shubman Gill, question marks on his strike rate and the way he goes about his business. So a lot of questions are being asked right now, and I think I won't be wrong in saying that McCullum has failed to give that assurance to all the players in the squad, whether what their role is, what their clear role is.
Varun, do you think they're peaking at the right time, maybe, with that win yesterday?
I think they are. I think that's the key thing with the IPL, right? If you start winning at the start like a Delhi Capitals and then you lose momentum, it's probably not the best way to play the IPL. But KKR, I think, like you mentioned, they've just not clicked as a unit. And so when you look at the team on paper, I think they're strong with the bowling lineup, with the batting lineup, with the middle order firepower that they have. But this year, something has just not worked. And I mean, I personally, I think I have a feeling they're going to be fighting for the 4th spot with Punjab, who's doing well. But they probably will edge through and make it to the playoffs.
Yeah, it's the inconsistency, right, Subhayan, that worries you, because they like batting and getting to 84 one day in 20 overs, and the next day they come out and smash 194 against probably the best bowling attack in the tournament. So they're up and down. But I want to find out from you. I mean, we've gone through a lot of the questions on Twitter, but I want to find out from you what connects fans to this team. What attracts new fans to this team and what keeps old fans invested in this team? Because we've been Delhi Capitals fans for 13 years now, and it's not been an easy ride. Obviously, you guys have had more success. But what is the USP for the Kolkata Knightriders?
I think always when we talk about KKR, there is glamour, controversy, everything associated with it, with the team. But talking about sporting aspects, I think the previous fans, I have no doubt about the loyalty of Kolkata fans when it comes to cricket and football or any other sport for that matter. But the new fans, I think they will be excited to. Any fan will be excited to. Even if we say we'll bring Sunil Narayan to or Andre Russell to Delhi Capitals, every Delhi fans will be excited to see what Trey Russ, the power man, brings to the table for them. And that is the case for KKR. You bring in Pat Cummins for 15.5 crores, world's arguably the world's best fast bowler, along with Jasprit Bumrah or others, we can say. So always these kind of things mix up with KKR, and it is an attractive franchisee when you talk about that.
And it's also good to see them giving players like Rahul Tripathi a shot at the top of the order. I mean, he did very well for the rising Pune Supergiant, right? And he's now part of the KKR setup, and he looks quite settled in there at the top of the order, which is great. But Subhayan, it has been a pleasure to have you on this podcast. Thank you for answering all those questions that came in. I mean, there were a lot of questions that came in. So thank you for patiently being grilled about all of those. Best of luck for your team. I know Varun has a lot of friends that support the KKR. So often he's in a little bit of a tight spot when the Delhi Capitals play them like yesterday and lose. But this season it's been 1-1, so we're not going to complain. But I have a big affinity for Calcutta, having gone to school for 6 years in there as well. And my wife's actually from Calcutta. So, a great franchise, a great cricketing tradition. Obviously, Eden Gardens being a great home venue. And hopefully we will see the Kolkata Knightriders back at their home venue and playing the Korbo Lordbo Jeetbo song again, right?
Absolutely. Playing for KKR itself is an honor for players. And I have spoken to a lot. And they have always said that the sporting culture they build in the squad, it's impeccable. So best of luck to KKR fans and the team, and hopefully they'll qualify for the playoffs.
Fantastic, Subhayan. Thank you so much for joining us on the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. Pleasure having you on.
Cheers. Thanks. Thank you so much. Keep up the good work. Thank you.
There you have it, guys. That's the episode for this week. And as usual, we'll be doing a quick fantasy wrap. And I have been looking forward to this all week. So on the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast Fantasy League, we have got 119 teams. And we are sitting... Akhil's teams, the superstars, like last week, is topping the table at 11,489.5 points. Jitin's best 11, again, from last week is 11,421.5 points at number 2. Velo Raptors is 11,050 at number 3. So, I don't think the top 3 have actually changed since last week, guys, which is interesting, I have to say. Looks like they're pulling away from the rest of the pack, like the top 3 in the IPL table a little bit, right? But yes, we can also confirm that the 3 podcasters, let me find where I am. I'm at rank 53 with 9,587.5 points. Varun is at rank 54. Oh.
4 points behind you. So I wouldn't get too excited.
No, but you know what? Points are points. Ashwin said points are points last episode. And whether you lose by 1 point or 100 makes no difference. So for the first time, I think this IPL, Varun, I'm actually ahead of you in the fantasy league. So I'm pretty pleased that this update is happening at this stage.
As we're recording, I was hoping Stokes takes 1 catch because that's all the differences between you and me. But unfortunately...
yeah, true. But the Cock has got to keep wicket as well. I had him as my captain. But anyway, the guy who's actually doing well, Varun and I, to tell the truth, are currently bottom feeders with no hope in the league at all, sitting in the 50s. Ashwin is doing fairly decently, and he is sat at number 1 Nehra fan. That is his team name. He is currently sat at number 19 with 10,203 points. Bro, well done, man. Can you give us some tips on how to improve our fantasy game?
Just be better, man. You guys are just really bad at it. Just be better.
Wow, that's like a real corporate tip from Ashwin Garg this time. And how do you improve? Just be better. Great.
Just be better. I got nothing else to say. I didn't make that up. Somebody in my English Premier League football team, we're having the same discussion in my fantasy league, and they were just like, "You just should be better. Just get better at it." No, I've been lucky, man. It's been a good run. I think Varun Chakraborty's 5-4 worked in my favor. I had him on my side. Ishan Kishan, I had him vice captain when he had that 68 knock. So it's been a good run.
Yeah, well done, man. I know you're actually, truth be told, Varun claims that he's ended top 3. Well, that claim ended last year when he ended God knows where. But he claimed he ended top 3. But you're probably the best fantasy player amongst us all because you actually track the playing 11s. You make sure that you've got the conditions right for the right player. And you pick the weird captains and vice captains, which is Varun and I will pick Rahul as captain, whereas you'll go for the Stoinis or something, right? Which is, it's offbeat and it's interesting. It's a interesting skill to have, I think.
If it's working, it's good. I couldn't tell if that was a compliment or an insult. It kind of felt like both at the same time, so we'll go with
backhanded compliment. I think it's great. I think it's you take a risk. You're a gambler. You're a high stakes kind of guy. Varun and I are more we bet odds on. You'd go for the odds of non-favorite.
And I would still trump Callis if I could, but Unfortunately, he's not
Unfortunately, Watson has been dropped by CSK, otherwise we'd be trumping him. But guys, of course, the top 3 in the Fantasy League get the t-shirt, so make sure you keep playing. And thank you again for listening to this week's Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. And guys, rate us, review us, tell your friends about us. This is happening twice a week. We drop episodes on Mondays and Thursdays, and we will be back next week. I think it's with the CSK fans if they have any left by then. But we will be back next week with yet another episode in the middle of the week as well as at the end of the week. So we will see you then, and take care and keep enjoying the IPL until then.
पेश खिदमत है आपकी शान में हमारे अंजुमन से. Hi, I am Sadaf.
And I'm Arshit. खाने का इतिहास, economics, policy, psychology, सब है मेन्यू पे.
Only on the Nankali podcast every Wednesday. सिर्फ IVM podcast app या वेबसाइट पर या फिर जहां से भी आप अपने पॉडकास्ट सुनते हो.
Whether you're an established sports person or a budding one or simply a sports enthusiast, join us, Tanvi and Shlok.
We are 2 passionate pro badminton players talking policy, mindset and everything sport.
So tune in to the Millennial Athlete every Monday.
Only on the IVM Podcast Network.
Trust us, it's gonna be lit.